The silver flame is one of the most interesting deities in Eberron lore. But despite that, there isn't a lot of information available about it online. There are some resources out there that detail the origins and tenets of the faith, but the only thing truly capturing the flavor of the silver flame is Chapter 6 of Storm King's Thunder. From the pages of this adventure module, we learn about how worship of the silver flame is completely different from other faiths. In fact, that chapter goes so far as to tell us what prayers to the silver flame sound like, and that's pretty cool. But that's not enough to get the full picture of the purified and their God. We need to see how the silver flame actually functions in the modern day. What are its temples like? What kinds of sermons are preached from its pulpits? How do its members behave in everyday life? And why should you care about the teachings of the silver flame? This is a cleric, after all, and one that wields radiant damage. So let's flesh out this mysterious god and see if we inspire a little creativity while we re-add it. First things first, let's talk about temples. The silver flame doesn't have a traditional temple structure. Instead, there are towers of purity. These structures are tall spires built in places where the faithful have overcome great evils or intend to do so in the future. They aren't meant to house a permanent clergy or anything like that, but rather serve as shrines to the silver flame at strategic locations across Eberron. While it's not impossible to encounter a purified cleric who guards a tower of purity, it's unlikely. Priests tend to travel to these sites only on pilgrimages or when they have business to conduct there. Towers of purity are normally unmarked and feature no iconography, but they are unmistakable. They are built from pure white marble, granite, or limestone. No mortar is used, and the stones appear to be locked together by magic or divine power. They're normally constructed at natural features such as waterfalls or particularly tall trees, but they can be built anywhere evil has been vanquished. A temple of the silver flame is thus a place of pilgrimage for the purified, but can also be a location where they perform rites or other functions. Normally, these are only done after a great victory over evil, or when a tower of purity is being constructed. Now, let's talk about sermons. The silver flame is a deity of action, so sermons tend to be short and to the point. You woe and find purified, priests rambling on about obscure prophecies or waxing philosophical about the nature of the universe. The sermons of the silver flame are usually given by paladins, and they emphasize a strict code of conduct. And purified paladins are expected to serve the poor and weak, oppose tyranny, protect innocents, hunt down evil creatures, and resist temptation at all costs. That's it. The main thrust of their sermons is to be a force for good whenever possible. Evil must be confronted whenever it is encountered, and the strong have a duty to defend the weak. A typical sermon might go like this. Today we come together to honor the silver flame and renew our commitment to the ideals it represents. Like the flame, we have been touched by divine fire and given the gift of radiant souls. We must strive to live up to this calling by aiding the helpless, opposing tyranny, and defending the innocent. We cannot turn away from evil when we see it, nor may we ever yield to temptation. The enemies of the silver flame attack from every side, but we shall stand firm. Remember, brothers and sisters, that we are not alone in this struggle. The flame watches over us, guiding us toward righteousness. Let us renew our oaths and pledge to uphold the tenets of the silver flame until our dying breath. That's a pretty generic example, though. There's a lot of variability among the different purified paladins depending on their background, experience, and personality. Some might focus on protecting the innocent, while others rail against tyranny and oppression. Some might be more concerned with hunting down evil creatures and monsters, while others preach charity and piety. Feel free to mix and match these different elements as you see fit to make sermons that are unique to your character. But what about everyday life? How do the purified behave when they're not engaged in smiting evil or attending ceremonies? Well, not all purified AD are created equal. Many of them don't follow a strict moral code or engage in the eradication of evil on a regular basis. But the higher you climb on the ladder of enlightenment, the more you have to watch your step. The basic tenet of the silver flame is that evil must be purged from the world, and the actions of the purified must reflect that. So here are 5 things you should never do if you want to be considered a purified. Never lie. Honesty is essential to the purified way of life, not just because dishonesty is a sin, but because deception is often used by forces of darkness. Lies lead to distrust, hatred, and suspicion, and only serve to corrupt the soul. Never steal. Theft is another way that the soul can be corrupted, and besides, Purified are expected to help those in need, not harm them. Never kill innocents. This is probably the most obvious one, but it needs to be stated nonetheless. Purified are supposed to be champions of the innocent, and killing an innocent would be the ultimate betrayal of everything the Silver Flame stands for. Never turn away from evil. Whenever a Purified encounters evil, he has a duty to stop it, regardless of the personal cost. Finally, never succumb to temptation. The enemy of the Silver Flame will always attack where it hurts the most, exploiting a creature's weaknesses in order to corrupt them. Any Purified who allows himself to be tempted and overcome loses his status as a servant of the Silver Flame and is shunned by his fellow Purified. These commandments are meant to represent the core of the Purified way of life. Purified is expected to uphold them at all times, regardless of the situation. Obviously, there will be exceptions, and Purified are allowed to make mistakes, but they're not supposed to make a habit of it. So what are the rewards of Purified worship? Well, for one, there's the promise of joining the Silver Flame in the afterlife, which is something that most Purified look forward to. It's also worth noting that the Silver Flame is a god of light and goodness, and those who worship it gain a +2 competence bonus on saving throws against charm, fear, and illusion effects. Now, if you're playing a Purified cleric, this might not seem like much, but remember, you're playing a support class. Your job isn't to tank attacks, it's to heal and buff your allies. In that role, a +2 competence bonus on saving throws is nothing to sneeze at. Also consider that you'll probably want to take the Purified domain anyway, because you want access to spells like Cure Wounds, Bless, and Heroism. Taking the light domain will mean you'll have a +2 resistance to dark damage, which is nice. But ultimately not that important because dark damage isn't super prevalent in Eberron. That's not to say you can't play a Purified cleric without taking the light domain, but it might be a bit difficult. Taking the light domain basically makes it so that your abilities function as if you were a cleric of a higher level than you actually are. For example, turning the undead would normally require a turn resistance check. But since you're a Purified cleric, you've got that +2 competence bonus, which means you can treat turning attempts as if you were a level higher. So even though it's possible to play a Purified cleric without taking the light domain, it's really not recommended. In conclusion, the Purified are a bit of an oddity in the pantheon of Eberron. They don't claim dominion over the world, nor do they worship a god that has existed since the dawn of time. They don't even worship a god that is immortal. The Silver Flame is a relatively new deity that arose from the mortal plane and is still evolving. Yet the Purified believe that the Silver Flame will one day rule over all of Eberron, ushering in an age of unparalleled peace and prosperity. Only time will tell if this prophecy is true or not. But in the meantime, the Purified continue their tireless work, purging the world of evil and striving to make it a better place. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.